Adoption of the agenda. The recommendation to suspend procedural bylaw requirements.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Donna. All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously, I believe, although sort of see the little fingers going up. Adoption of the regular meeting agenda. Moved by Rick, second.
Second.
Janice, any discussion? Yeah, well, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. So all those in favor? Thank you. So the consent agenda is there before you with the items referenced and the corresponding briefing notes in your package. So just procedurally, if there are any trustees interested in lifting one or more of the items from the consent agenda, this is the time to do that. So I'll go to Sheila and then to Janice.
I was wanting to lift the correspondence received from Marilyn Netherton and Maureen Clark, please.
Okay. And that would go to board business. Board business. J4. Under J4, last page. Okay. And Janice?
I wanted to speak to the ICANN presentation, so I would like to lift the letter received from Jen Turner regarding the ICANN project, talk to you about the ICANN project.
Okay. Okay, consent agenda has been amended to move items 4A and B to the board business. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor? Consent agenda? And that's carried. Thank you. Report on in-camera meeting. The board did have a camera meeting prior to this meeting and also had one on May 22nd to deal with financial and contractual and personnel matters. And we're very pleased to have a substantial delegation here this evening. Fred McGregor. To introduce Mr. Fred McGregor, and it's regarding the BC Hydro Energy Ambassador Student Presentation. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for letting us continue your meeting. I have a bunch of energy ambassador students here for the presentation. I also have Jennifer from BC Hydro and a couple of our teacher sponsors, Lee Davis, and Phil Carson. So I'll let the students take the stage.
Well, my name is Brandon too.
I'm Taylor Swing.
And we're from Isbel Environment Club.
I'm Brittany Maslin. I'm Alicia Saunders. I'm Nikki Patterson. I'm Nicole Williams. I'm Cypress Sutton. I'm Hannah Walters. I'm Stannis. Who are the energy ambassadors? We are a group of students in various schools in the school district that are very passionate about the environment. And we have lots of different initiatives to try and conserve the environment in our schools and our homes. As energy ambassadors, we gather information about energy and resource use. We also plan and deliver outreach activities in the school to raise awareness and change habits. We take initiative to start projects that will promote energy conservation.
So our conservation efforts have been, well, many years. We've done several different projects, such as going to Valley View Elementary School and bringing our puppet, Bolt, to teach the younger grades about energy conservation, as well as our ugly sweater days in December to help turn down the heat while keeping ourselves warm. And there's also been many other smaller projects for us, such as energy elves, daylight sensors in the foyer, and some big ones like water bottle filling stations.
This is a graph showcasing our 17% decrease in energy savings this year. The arrow pointing shows the decrease from this year, and the other ones next to it are from past years.
So we've made a difference in many different ways. We've done several things such as broom bashing, where we can cut all that broom that just gets everywhere, and seed planting in our garden. We've got quite a variety of seeds, and then taking on many different projects and different activities such as recycling Halloween wrappers, battery recycling, spuds and tubs, the program, and selling flower
lights out lunches, which have been very positive. And we emphasize on energy education and turning off lights that aren't in use.
For the past few years, we've done energy surveys around the school, surveying both teachers and students. We found, which will probably be happy to hear, that teachers have been very energy conscious, whereas students have lacked in a few areas. Through those areas, we took that initiative to educate them on what they could do differently to conserve more energy. For example, students didn't know what a vampire load was. So lots of students are now unplugging their chargers when their cell phones aren't plugged into them.
And we have also done some energy audits, so sneaking around the school and checking if electronics have been turned off. And we found that most of the time that lights and computers were turned off, but monitors were left on.
The last phase of our very solar power project was installing, which increased our solar energy from 6,000 watts to 8,000.
And in case you can't do the math, that's 2,000 watts saving.
This is enough power to light up the gymnasium or 7 classrooms. Also, in the future plan is to install a monitor in the main building to show students how to Our main goal this year was targeted against zero waste. So zero waste regarding water, energy, and food waste. We started a composting project in Banyu this year, which has been one of our major goals for a long time, but it's been really hard because Banyu is quite a large school. So getting that going with just our environment club, who runs the whole program independently, has been pretty awesome. And because of this, we're reducing emissions from transporting all our extra wastes to landfills, and we get great gardening soil for our gardens.
We hope that the Comox Valley School Board will continue to support our energy conservation projects.
So some trends we have in our school district would be to do with changing the technology and having more positive results towards our energy savings. Conservation messages we have gotten across to the teachers, such as switching off their electronics. And we have had sensor switches installed in our schools and solar panels, which are very good for our energy consumption. It helps with that. And we continue to progress in other areas of conservation, such as waste, food, and other spaces. Areas that we need to be changed and we need solutions would have to do with powering down electronics that aren't in use.
Some keys to success would be persistence, obviously, connecting with important allies like school administration, custodians, and Fred. We promoted activities, recruiting new members, we meet regularly, once a week, and we do what we love when we step on and stay positive.
Some of the benefits of our work have been reducing energy use and doing good and doing work, spreading knowledge and awareness, linking and creating
we ask for encouragement of the development in partnerships across schools to create an environmental network, such as the Buddies program, which is an environmental club with secondary students mentoring elementary students, and keep reinvesting energy savings in conservation-focused projects.
Thank you.
Thank you to our teachers and our schools for their continued support.
Thank you to the district for their resources and support.
Thank you to Fred McGregor for the energy information and support.
Thank you.
The energy there. Do you have time for some questions from trustees?
We got a few minutes left. Sure.
Trustees, any questions?
Where's Fred?
Right there.
The energy guy. Well, we never really talked about why I voted against the technology purchase.
And
but
this is not the time.
no, one of the reasons was because I'd like us to invest in wind power at Isfeld, and then we'd make so much savings from that we could put it into the computers. So that was my thing. I'm just wondering whether the idea, I really like the idea of being able to take the high school students to partner with the elementaries and do that. It's not something that would work by having students enroll in independent learning projects that were in fact to do that very thing, that they would get credit for the process of bringing all our schools to a zero waste status, and that teachers would be able to support that as a
I think this program, that's one of the things the students enjoy the most, and they get the most out of too, is not only are they teaching, but they're kind of almost being teachers. You know, they have to put together the program, and they have to present it, which is a good thing to practice and learn as a student. So that's been a really big part of the Energy Ambassadors program for sure. So, and we should expand on that, I think, and include more schools. And typically, we'll take these feeder schools that feed into Vanier and Isfeld in this case, but we should expand that to some other schools as well.
I would like to see some leaders from our different Vanier Environment Club and Isfeld Environment Club to go to those feeder schools and maybe visit with their environmental clubs, because they have them as well. And that could be a very good experience for both clubs and participants.
I know I can say that being in most of the schools, that Cuban's probably the most progressive kids in terms of the environment club. They've done an exceptional job, that reflects very well on the Vandy students that have been there, and you know they're so much further ahead than a lot of the other schools. I think spreading around to some of the others would be really helpful, because I think they're really well on the way at Cuban.
That's why I emphasize on both parties, because they have a lot of good things that we can learn.
The other thing I want to mention real quick is BC Hydro has a lot of student programs shovel ready for teaching staff. The lesson plans are there, so we can take advantage of that. All you have to do is they'll bring a person in, they'll train the teacher, they'll give them the lesson plans, the books, the materials, and they just have to present it to their classes. So it's a real great opportunity. It's already been created by teachers through BC Hydro. So.
I'm just curious if you guys get together school to school to get different ideas and, you know, meet together, or is it just separate school clubs?
Well, with the Energy Ambassadors program, that has been one of the benefits of it. We've gotten to meet twice this school year and got to share ideas. We also see each other at protests.
I would like to have some of our environment club members actually sit on each other's meetings, because we have a lot of good discussions at our meetings, and I'd love to hear what you guys do, because I saw lots of good projects they have.
Can I ask are you the ambassadors, or are you representative of a larger group of ambassadors?
There are some members of our team who couldn't be here tonight.
Because, and the reason that I ask, and as a guy, I can't help but notice, is our sole champion there, and I'm wondering if that is that something that you guys talk about and wonder about trying to challenge to engage.
One more.
Well, good.
And I actually have met with the Highland group a couple of times, and they look just the same as you do.
Well, on behalf of the board, thank you very much for taking the time to present in your ongoing work. I'd actually love to all have you come to my house, because I am fighting a losing battle on front around lights on and off. But very much appreciate the time that you've taken this evening and your, no pun intended, energy that you put into this work. So thank you. And thank you, Fred.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks very much.
So I have benefited from that partnership. And then go.
Okay, so we'll move on to Education Committee report, and there was no meeting in May, so nothing to report, but we have the Professional Partnership Showcase. Trustee Katie.
So I would just like to acknowledge, I know that myself, Trustee Dahl, and Trustee Shelby attended the Professional Partnership Showcase, and I will just touch base on my thoughts now, and I will turn over to Director Douglas to comment on that. I must say to my fellow trustees, I was totally blown away and amazed at the quality and the energy and the presentation from our district teaching staff and our district staff of some of the incredible showcases and partnerships they have done over the number of years. From the CSI, I think they killed off the principal again this year and tried to solve that crime. We saw the video on that, to the new reporting system, the new assessment, and the one application. The process is you take your smartphone and you go to the computer screen and you put in that little Q thing and it comes up with a child's work. I was just really amazed, and I hope next year when they have it, the rest of you guys will get a chance to touch base on it. I think that the energy that our district has, I think that next year with that professional learning community that we have on our calendar next year, we'll have more amazing projects coming from our teaching staff. And I'll turn it to you, Director Douglas, to touch on what I might have missed.
Thank you so much, Janice. Thank you to everyone who was able to make it on May 16th. On page 13 of your package, it lists all of the inquiry testers and the team leaders. And that only is the beginning of the number of people involved. We estimated 150 people, but it probably was more. And I wanted to remind people that this started with the innovation money from the ministry about 7 years ago. And the money came for a couple of years, and our board believed in this work and supported it and put more money into it. And this is our 6th year of having professional partnership in our district. So these are collaborative teams working together to make things better for the students in our school district. I think it's grown over time in a beautiful, positive way. History would have seen early learning people there, our Strong Start people, our ECE people working with our primary teachers. So we're looking at that 0 to right through to grade 12 continuum, which is wonderful to see. Janice mentioned the new ways of reporting and assessing. Those have gotten the eye and the attention of the Ministry of Education and come and spent 2 days with us looking at the innovative work that our elementary teachers are doing around assessment and reporting. And that QR code thing, Janice, was new for me too. I see those little codes on the newspaper, and you click on it if you have a code reader, and it shows you a whole bunch of new things. So this links to the child's e-portfolio and shows you all of their student work. So there you're a parent, you can see all of the artwork, the writing, the reading, the science projects that have been happening at school. It's quite amazing stuff. We saw great projects on technology, lots of curriculum-based projects, and we had the ICANN people, the Aboriginal education folks. It almost touches every single thing the school district does. So thanks again for coming, and I know on behalf of all those teachers that were there, we'd like to thank the board for their continued support in providing the funds to make these things happen.
Thank you. Any comments or questions, trustee? Hearing none, thank you. Trustee Caden. I'm wondering, Janice, if you could take the mantle, as it were, because this next item is mine. If you could share that.
Okay. So, you see before you, we have a motion, a recommendation with respect to our board procedural bylaw. And do I have a reader for that first part, please?
And so the notice of motion was made last week, and the briefing notice on page 14 in your package, and with the adjusted language in the procedural bylaws in the 6 or so pages that follow. So I'd be happy to read that the school district number 71, Comox Valley Board Procedural Bylaw 2013 received its first reading.
Do I have a seconder? Peter, thank you. Any discussion? Any comments? So therefore I'll call the question. All in favor? All opposed? So I have 1 abstention and 6. So my question is procedural. Does this...
The only one that requires unanimous approval is the third.
Great. So I have a reader for the second part, please.
The school district 71, Comox Valley Board Procedural Bylaw 2013 receive its second reading.
Do I have a seconder?
Second that.
Okay. Any questions? Yes, trustee.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, it's stated in the preamble here that the Board of Education implemented on a trial basis a new regular meeting agenda. Is it presumed that we're going to continue that trial basis, or is this adoption? That's my first question. And my second question is, has the Policy Committee had an opportunity to take a look at this?
I'm going to turn this over to the mover of the motion. Would you like to answer those questions, please?
So the intent is to adopt the new agenda format. For the last number of months, as we've been test driving it and going through the procedure at the outset of making exception to use this procedure rather than the one that is part of the procedural bylaws. So that is the intent. It's certainly recognized by me that as we move forward with this and with any other things, if there are adjustments that are needed, if there are learnings that occur, then the board is always free to make those adjustments. It has not gone through a process with the policy committee because in large part it's been part of conversations that we've had at governance and have sort of test driven here at the table.
Anything else? Any other questions? Any other comments? Yes, Trustee McDonald?
Just on the matter of that agenda, I think that the trial has been reasonably successful in terms of a reorganization of some of those elements. But I think that once this is adopted, we do still have quite a bit of work to do in the understanding of how we have discussions within these new sections. Because my experience has been we're still using, we've changed some headings, but the nature of those discussions in terms of the idea of generative dialogue hasn't really changed. And the idea that we have conversations which then at a certain point lead to a decision about our next steps or something. I don't feel that we're there yet. I think we're still doing our 1, 2, 3, you've spoken once, 3 minutes, it's over within a new framework. And I'm hoping that it will lead to generating a lot more clarity to adopt the change as it is, but we'll need to do more to make it really manifest its potential power as a tool.
Any other comments? So I call the question. All those in favor? And we have, I'm sorry, you abstaining? Okay, so I have 2 abstentions. Okay, so next one, I believe, is where, do I have a reader for that motion, please? And this is where it must pass unanimously, or else the motion will come to the next board meeting for passing.
That the board unanimously agree to suspend the requirements of the School Act and Board Procedural Bylaw 2007 to have the third and final reading at a subsequent meeting.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Donna. So this must pass unanimously, or it will come to next month's board meeting for the final and third reading. So all those in favor? Does not pass. It will come to next month's board meeting. Mr. Chair, it's now yours again.
Thank you very much. And we'll move on to correspondence received from Cynthia Fickman, the Secretary for the Board of Directors for the Valley Food Action Society. And the correspondence attached on page 24. And the reason it's here is that in addition to sort of describing the work that they're doing, there's also an ask requesting for us as a board to consider participation or representation. So it's on the agenda for the board's pleasure discussion.
So my understanding, and I could be out from the left field in this one here, that trustees have the ability to attend any meeting that they want to. That's just part of who we are in the community. So, and I don't believe we do regularly, through a board motion, appoint trustees to sit on certain committees unless there's a particular reason. So I don't know why this would come asking permission for a trustee to attend, because part of our roles as trustees is community engagement, and we can choose to attend wherever we want based on our interests. So I don't see the necessity to actually officially appoint a trustee from the board. I invite anybody to go to anything that they want to go to. If they like gardening, go gardening, or cars, or whatever. So I'm happy with anybody wanting to go and not representing the board officially, because I've never done it in the past. So for me, it's I don't understand why that request is there.
And just for clarification, it doesn't come with a motion. It's wide open for board direction.
I think I've been aware of the work that Lush has done for quite a while, and certainly as somebody working with various community garden groups and food gardens is something that we're very interested in. The establishment of the round table is an important step around and Lush receives significant amounts of funding from the health authority, so it's a piece of the collaborative health promotion work that different agencies are doing in the valley. And I think the piece of having some, it would be a statement of our recognition that we play an important role, because we do have school gardens, some of which have a community component, that we that our students and their families certainly benefit from these initiatives to bring increased access to local healthy food in the valley. So there are many other municipalities where the different partner agencies have adopted a food charter, for instance, and then that becomes a piece of where different groups sort of are expressing their commitment and their buy-in to the process, and will work together to improve what is really a network of agencies working together and individuals, and a continuum from our full-on agricultural activity in the valley to backyard gardeners. And it's a very interesting thing for me, because the agriculture sector in the valley is a very significant employer. And so for our students to be recognizing that for many of them they would have a reasonable future as farmers or food producers or whatever, and being part of the round table process, which might become at some point an official CVRD agency, for instance, multi-party program. We're just indicating that we know we've got a stake in it, and that we should be there at the table participating. So it's a little similar to the cycling task force, where we were asked to have someone sit on it, and I'm there representing. It doesn't, whoever's participating doesn't have a mandate to be an official voice without consulting back, but it is a liaison role that's pretty important, and I do think it goes beyond the idea that we just show up and attend whatever we want to saying that this roundtable is really a group that are trying to do some serious work on the role of food security and the role of agriculture in our valley. So I think that we should have somebody at the table. I think Paula would be a great representative in this particular case. And I think we have a lot to gain from being involved and officially connecting with various partner groups that help our kids in school and help their families in a really wide range of activities. So I sort of think that we should say, yeah, sure, let's be participants in this roundtable.
Thank you.
I would be willing to go, officially or non-officially. Maybe a day.
Thank you, Paula. Any other comments? Hearing none, then I suppose just on a consensus basis. Paula, certainly representing us at the at their meetings. And again, as Sheila accurately says, you're not there in a formal capacity. You are there. You are there as a trustee, but you bring your voice and not the board's voice, pending support from the board on any particular issue. So I think it would be a good thing. So thank you. Thank you. Okay, we move on to number 1 under good news items.
I would point that, pardon me, I've not got much of a voice left by the end of the day, which is good news for most folks, I think. Is to point the trustees in the gallery to page 25 and 26, where we have a wonderfully long list of amazing things that are going on in the Valley. I'm not going to go through them or read them, but just highlight for you that they are examples of what's going on in our schools all the time. This list recognizes that Glacier View Learning Center students, those are our students who are at Glacier View working on a variety of different programs, who are working just recently on behalf of themselves and the community. Speaks to the fact that our students went off to Knoxville, Tennessee, where it was 103 degrees when it was pouring monsoon rain here, and had a wonderful time and did very well once again at Destination Imagination. There'll be a bit of a news story coming out in the next couple of days about that. Recognize that we had an amazing evening a couple of weeks ago at our Aboriginal Education grad, where we not just recognized students K to 12 for their academic or work habit improvement over the year, but there were 50 Aboriginal students who graduate this year from the Comox Valley, and it was a wonderful event, well attended, families and friends of those students who have worked so very hard this year. The Valley is known for their fine arts and certainly continues to do so. Keisha, of course, won the Great Canadian Song Race, which is an amazing thing. She's an incredible young woman from Marcusfeld, and we're very proud of her, and I suspect that the whole school district's involvement in voting for her online was probably key. Not that there were emails that went out to everybody and just to remind them to vote, but that was certainly helpful. Again, in athletics, not only do our athletes do well at the provincial standard levels around team sports, but note that Isfeld, one of their major grad legacies is their participation in the Relay for Life. And that comes up next week, actually, and that's where their whole grad class is involved in one way or another. And in fact, that's the Relay for Life and through fundraising. But they have 145 graduates actually participating in that evening, that whole 24-hour race. Wanted to just again highlight the amazing work of Lori Mazie and the Torn Rainbow. I'm not sure that folks remember that in addition to actually creating that play and putting that play on the stage last year, they made a commitment to share that play to other school districts. So and originally we kind of set a limit of Vancouver Island, and that didn't work. The benchmark got bigger. So now the Vales Vanier students, some of them in their second year of performing that play, which was part of our attempt to work with the Community Justice Center on something that would raise awareness around homophobia and social injustice. Now they go across to the Lower Mainlands, and they're in such demand that we suspect they'll be, in the years to come, students will graduate, new students will fill those parts, and that play will be on the Huckster provincially wide, because they can't fill the spots from the schools that are asking for them across the province. They've gone into the interior, and we were talking about sort of a northern swing next year. What an experience for our students. It's just the most amazing thing. The other piece to talk about is that in the monsoon of the last 3 days, Mark Isfeld is hosting at Crown Isle the BC High School Championships for golf. And though I was feeling fairly sorry for them, because of the rain, I was reminded by a coach last night who said that if they'd been hosting it in the interior, it would have snowed yesterday. So maybe the rain wasn't quite so bad. And apparently they're having a wonderful time. That's about 150 golfers from all over the province. High quality golf. It's amazing to see 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds playing with the concentration and the focus that they do at that level. And then just as some other information, one of the things that we try to do is to give our opportunities to learn from folks outside of our valley. And of course, Gwyn Dyer was in at Isfeld. He always produces a very controversial, thought-provoking presentation on the alternatives to sort of present thought on things like environment, powers, and in fact war, and he does an amazing thing on social justice. So he was back at ISPEL, and then just wanted to let you know that again our VEX students do extremely well. And finally, there's a copy of an insert of a thank you from our Challenge program, which is a program that boards in the past and boards in the present continue to support with staffing at a time when it's fairly perfect, almost non-existent in other school districts. Gifted students are not able to receive support in many other school districts, but this district has continued to support them with a program like Challenge. And you might want to note one of the star presenters down towards the bottom. Our very own trustee, Mr. Coleman, was doing sailing adventure in knot tying. I'm not so sure about that, but that's where his skill set is, and they had a wonderful time. And finally, I'll finish with something that is not on the 2 pages, but I just wanted to let you know it came to our attention today in a school review at Royston. If you had the opportunity to attend at the Comox Art Gallery, which is on Duncan Street, I believe, it's the little one across from the library, for this month and ending on Saturday for June 1st, the grade 3 class from Royston Elementary has every single child in that grade 3 class has their artwork on presentation at the art gallery. They had an opening that they attended. It's all presented like a professional. They had a professional artist come in and help them learn. They've been doing a module on trumpeter swans. They'd read a book, they'd done poetry, and they had an artist come in, help them learn to draw. They did clay, they did a sketch, and they finally did a final painting, and all of those paintings are on exhibit. And these little ones told us about that today at the school review, and you should have seen how proud they were that they were on at the art gallery. So if you have a chance in the next couple of days to visit the art gallery, I believe it's free. It's in that little alcove as you go in on the left, and that's the work of our students from Royston Elementary. So that's my end of my report.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Thank you very much. Move on to the board authority authorized course offerings, and through you to Assistant Superintendent Benal.
Sure. Thank you. In your package, you'll see some BA, as they're referred to, or authorized courses for robotics 11 and 12. These are a continuation of the robotics offering that was the board approved last year with Robotics 10, and these are put forth by Stu Savard in conjunction with his work with Randy Gray. Now, if you take a look at just drawing attention to the bit of good news that the superintendent shared, where 3 of our students placed 46th out of 420 in the World Championships. Our district is known provincially as a leader in robotics. With these 3 courses now, we've got a continuation at the high school level where students can study robotics and get into it at their level. Furthermore, it allows them to work in some blended models with Navigate and the schools. The options for these students to explore and expand has increased immensely. The plan that Randy and Stu had presented, and this was attached last year to your packages, and it's a whole selection of courses in the robotics theme, starting at 8 right to 12, with some variations. As we move into personalized learning, it allows students to get into their passion. This is their passion area, and they can get into it with more than one course. So all 3 courses, or the 2 courses here tonight in front of you, the 11 and 12, would be available not only to the Navigate students, but those curriculums are available to all our students in our district. And so I open it up to any questions. Yes.
So I'm actually going to make the motion that the board approve the board authorized courses offered as presented to be offered students in the district at the respective secondary schools.
Second.
Thank you.
Well, actually, I think it's really great. Now, it's wonderful that we're doing this. It's personalized learning. Now, when you talk to at the respective secondary schools, that's telling me that at all 3 secondary schools there will be something available. If not, the students will have some opportunity to fulfill that. Is my correct understanding?
Yes, they will have the opportunity. All 3 schools will have a learning center, an operating learning center next year. So students can access these courses through Navigate should they wish. And with Stu as a lead teacher in this area, if you go back, and remember at Vanny when robotics first started with Randy tearing apart old photocopiers, creating robots, to this now that is available to all our students. And so it's another option for our students and an elective offering through the Navigate program.
I think it's great. I always think it's kind of crazy that we get asked to approve this because, other than saying that I think you guys know what you're doing in this area. I'm really, this, one of the things that have come up for me from parents who have kids in the Enter program is what's happening for them in grade 9, and these courses are a continuum going forward in areas that they are quite interested in, but are you guys getting that problem?
Absolutely. We're working on that so that there is the link. So we've got here, and we're going to meet in the middle. That's the plan.
And then this course would also be taken by kids that are just in a conventional class program, because they do have a great program at Vanny.
And also understand that some of these courses will be have been offered as course selection for any student in a high school, and they can run as a 30 students in a class regular robotics course, right? And in fact, that has happened in the past.
Well, that physics engineering combo
that's correct. Yeah,
is really a good course for kids to get the hands on to temper the physics side of it.
And then the sidebar of this is that understand that when a course is written in a school district and approved by a board, it's the mandate. It has to come from, we do it and bring it to you, it has to. But that means that other school districts can access this courses. So everyone's been waiting. They've been saying, have Randy and Stu written that grade 11 and 12 piece of it? So this course will be offered by other school districts as well.
We don't get propriety rights.
We don't get any propriety rights.
Share the brilliance. That's what it's all about.
That's right.
Okay. Seeing no other questions or comments, all those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Thank you very much.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll ask Director Schatz to speak to the Family Literacy Report and give a little bit of a context for folks about why it's in front of you today.
In your pack, you'll find the Comox Valley District Literacy Plan. Trustees did receive copies of the plan earlier this week, so you've had a chance to go through it. The plan is submitted by the coordinator, Danielle Hoogland from Comox Valley Literacy Outreach, Mia Wood from the Hornby Island Literacy Outreach, Betty Yee from Comox Valley Essential Skills, Lynn Joseph from Family Literacy Outreach Coordinator, and myself from the school district. The literacy plan is a yearly plan that goes through the different kinds of literacy programming that these groups have undertaken throughout the year, and they answer to the Ministry of Education. So that's why we would have it here today.
Questions or comments? Trustees? There's a recommendation for us.
I think it was a great report, very interesting picture of what's going on in the valley and those different needs and gaps. I did think that, that question about the new employment program really not serving our students and at-risk youth very well is one that I hope will continue to be working in partnership with those people, because that's a huge gap, and so many of our kids are just at a loss when they are faced with the employment situation in the valley. I mean, it's great. But I thought the report was great. Thanks for representing us there.
Janice and then Rick.
Always, I do.
So I saw a motion there. Rick?
Yeah, I'm going to move the motion that the board approve the draft report as the version that will be sent to the Ministry of Education.
The seconder?
I'll second.
Janice? Further discussion?
Just because this is what's going to be sent, I have just wordsmithing, or there's a wrong word on page 55, very bottom bullet, and I'm hoping this is a wrong word. It should be formally, not formerly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The beauty of spelling. Corrects the spelling, but gives you the wrong word.
That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah. John, can I ask one more question? Thank you. Just about that essential skills program, we had a presentation about it at one of our board meetings a while ago, and it just seemed like a great program. And I see that the young parents program is there. It's a pretty small number, but the essential skills program and that's not currently being funded, but the resource materials and skills is there. I mean, I'm hoping that we'll find a way to fund or continue to support it.
So the bad news is it was no longer being funded. The good news is that in the relationships that we have with those folks, in fact, some of them actually coexist in buildings that we have students in. So we have ready access to those resources and a relationship where with some small funding from within our own system, those folks still come in and work with our vulnerable kids.
That's great.
So at Nalatsi, at Glacier View,
Betty was developed. So that's great.
The only other thing that, to be fair, to sort of alleviate some of your concerns about the gap, there is a great program in existence in our valley across BC, and it's called Blade Runners, and that program has been funded, and it continues to be funded, and that very often meets the needs of some of our students, particularly if they're students known to us that are out of school and we can reach them. Then we usually try to get them connected to Blade Runners, and that they're highly successful in those programs.
So,
thank you.
So I'd just like to comment on the report. And when I read it, it was amazing some of the interesting facts that I read about. The fact that the Cumberland median age is 10 years younger than, the city of Courtney and the number of students. So I thank for the report. It's some of the interesting facts. Things I didn't realize, that was quite interesting. And some of the things are shocking. I looked at the fact that once again you're fighting for money, which to me is such a valuable interest. So whatever we as a board can do to help you, support you, I would say that I'd be more than willing to help you on that one personally. So it's a great report.
Take that
Thank
back
you.
for them.
sure.
And just to close off on the report, I wanted to thank Director Schatz. Some folks would ask why a school district is responsible for community literacy. It came in an act. I can't remember if it was Bill 19 or Bill 22. Buried in the 56th page of that act where we were being given additional responsibilities. But what that does mean is that Esther provides a very big conduit to the school district, from the school district and towards the school district on this committee. They meet regularly, and it's one more large piece of work that's on her very busy plate. So I appreciate your representing the school district there. And there's lots and lots of meetings.
So on the motion, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.
If I could just ask the Director of HR to move on to the Human Resources report, please.
Page 68. This is the time of year when we have our list of retirements. So Frank Lotko, the teacher at Highland Secondary, will retire at the end of June after 22 years of service for the district. Jan Eisenor, teacher at Hugh Park, will retire June 30th after 32 years of service for the district. Wanda Fields, the work experience program worker at Mark Isfeld, will retire June 27th after 15 years of service for the district. Charlie Schelling, the principal of J.P. Vanier, will retire July 31st after 23 years of service for the district. Ken Piercy, art teacher at Lake Trail, will retire June 30th after 23 years of service for the district. And Owen Bull, who was a bus driver who moved to Victoria, is not returning, so he resigned. And so that's the list. And this is an opportunity to remind everyone that all of those retirees will be recognized at the board retirement function that is coming up Monday, June the 10th at the Native Sons Hall. That's my report.
Thank you very much. Moving to board meeting reports. Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will turn this over because the primary presentation is our operating budget 2015-14. So I'll turn it over to our Secretary Treasurer.
Thank you. My apologies to the gallery. The PowerPoint presentation is behind you that we're going to do on them. So if you want to turn your chair and not wreck your necks, that's a good time. So just to review the process that the Finance Committee, with the involvement of the board, has done to get to this stage. December, January, we began our preliminary estimates of our revenue and expenditures and submitted information to the ministry that resulted in our funding estimate for the 13-14 school year being released on March 15th. Attached to that announcements was the commencement of our staffing processes that kick off in March, and we were able to begin that in a reasonable time to allow that process to follow through. The Finance Committee was very active through the months of February and March, working with senior management and looking at the preliminary budgets and sharing with the board on what our financial situation was heading into this budget. During the month of March, the management team had a fairly long meeting and was able to bring forward information for the Finance Committee to consider that triggered the stakeholder consultation that occurred during the month of April. And I believe there were 7 or 8 meetings with various types of groups of people during that consultation. And finally, we are at this point where we're looking to adopt the 2013-14 budget at this meeting. To give you an indication of what our financial position was starting this budget, the Ministry of Education grants were being decreased by $971,000, attributed largely to an enrollment decline of approximately 80 students and their funding formula and how it kicked in. We were able to offset that reduction by $200,000 of local revenues that were attached to the International Student Program and NISE Navigate. So in total, our net revenue decrease for next year was $771,000. We had some expenditure increases that we could not control. One was at the time the Liberals announced in their provincial budget that there would be a $5 per student, per family, per month increase in the MSP rates. That translates into $48,000 for us. We have some employee benefit change as a result of some collective agreements, resulting in a $25,000 additional cost. The large one was a decision that the Teacher Pension Plan Board made to increase the employer contribution rate by 1.3 percentage points, so not 1.3%, but 1.3 percentage points of teachers' salaries. So that was $476,000. And finally, we have retiring teachers, new teachers, teachers moving up the grid during the year, and that generally costs about $125,000. So in total, we were looking at $674,000 increase in our expenditures, matched up with a $771,000 decrease in our revenue, was a total budget shortfall of $1.445 million. Working with the Finance Committee, we had developed some guiding principles around how we would approach this shortfall, and they were helpful in moving us to a solution. So the first one was, where possible, keep the reductions away from children. So if we were able to look at reductions that were not a direct service to the children, that's what we would try to do. We wanted to preserve the current staffing positions as much as possible. In the previous budget year, we had a fair amount of changes in the number of positions, whether it was maintenance or education assistants, and we thought it would be healthy if we could avoid that this year. And we wanted to look for system efficiencies, sort of where we could reduce costs without affecting services. That would be something that we would try to do. We felt that the entire budget should make a contribution to this system, so it wasn't just about this problem was in the classroom. We wanted to look at administration, transportation, operation and maintenance, and any other area that we could. And we wanted to focus in on the non-salary costs as much as possible. Now in our budget, about 87% of our budget is salaries and benefits of various types of people. So that last one was really focusing on 13% of our budget, but it did provide an opportunity to find some savings and keep us away from staffing reductions. So this slide gets to how the board approached, or how the Finance Committee approached balancing this budget. So the first item is we had 3 items in the budget that were one-time in nature in the current year, the 12-13 budget. So the board had authorized a one-time additional payment to the Tribune Bay, which we could remove. The additional professional partnerships, we carry a base amount of $35,000. The $45,000 was added for the current year, and this amount can be removed as we're able to create the opportunities for teachers to get together through the professional learning communities that are now embedded into the timetable. And we also had a one-time IT, information technology innovation grant that could be removed. Through the process of our staffing with the teachers, there was a 5.0 FTE reduction in our teaching staffing, largely attributed to the enrollment decline. That resulted in a $462,000 savings. The last item on this screen is a leave replacement where we're looking at not replacing all staff on the first day of coverage. So this would be education assistants, library clerks, administrative assistants, and those teachers that we would consider non-enrolling, not in front of students all the time. It's important to note that we did a fair amount of data analysis on this, and if we didn't replace all of the leaves of absence on the first day, it was over $550,000 savings. So we're looking at approximately a 40% savings in this area, or 40% of the leaves would not be replaced. We're hoping to do this in an intelligent way where certainly students that have high needs, that have education assistants attached to them, those would be the types of positions that we would fill. If you have a smaller school with one administrative assistant, we certainly would be looking to fill that position. But where possible, where operationally sound, we would look to try to realize $200,000 savings in not replacing first days. This is new for this school district. It's reasonably common in other school districts across the province as a strategy to try to control the costs. The supplies and services reduction, so this kind of gets into that 13% of our budget that's not people. We came up with $30,000 savings in the cost to operate the school board office administration. We indicated to the operation and maintenance department that they were going to have $50,000 less next year than they received this year, and I'm aware that the strategy to deal with that will not result in any layoffs. We've also have some funds within the district to deal with district growth and innovation, looking at reducing that amount by $50,000. That would be the district component, not the amount of funds that are allocated out to the schools to manage. The next four items are attached to the schools specifically, and it represents a 5% reduction in their current budget. The last item on this screen is we had talked on one of the earlier slides that we've added $200,000 revenue around ISP and NIDES. Well, that's attributed to increased students, increased demand for support, and in this case we're having to match that additional revenue with some additional staff, and so we would see an increase in our staffing budget for $157,000. If you put those two previous slides together, that adds up to a budget adjustment of $826,000. And if we put that against the $1.445 million shortfall, that left $619,000 remaining. And the recommendation from the Finance Committee is that we access the district operating reserve to fund that, to create a zero balanced budget. In the bottom of the screen is the projected surplus at the end of this year is approximately $3.3 million, and if we were to take that $619,000, we'd still have a healthy reserve of $2.67 million. At the bottom there, it indicates that the district is not in funding protection at this year, and what funding protection does is it helps districts that have a large declining enrollment. It gives them special grants to help them buffer the result of that reduction. So it's positive that we are not in funding protection. And what that means is in December, when the government does the recalculation of the grants to the school district, there's a good chance that we will receive enough funding to offset that, the amount, the $619,000 that we're accessing from the operating reserve. And if it's like previous years, there may be a couple, $300,000 remaining that we can build into our amended budget. Up on the screen here is a summary of how the budget bylaw breaks down. That's we need to talk about tonight. So the operating budget is $74.466 million. The special purpose fund budget is $4.167, and the capital fund is $6,213,000. So that's it for my PowerPoint. So maybe I'd ask the trustees to turn to and everybody else to turn to page 72 in their package. So page 71, 72, and 73, and carrying on, this is a summary that we prepared for the board. It's intended to give you a high-level snapshot of our budget and something that you can take and share at parent advisory councils if you're asked to speak to the budget. So page 72 compares the preliminary budget that's being presented to you to our fall budget for the 12-13, the amended budget. And you can see that our revenues are down that $771,000 that we were talking about in that slide. If you turn over to page 73, our total expenditures are the 74,466 that I just spoke to, compared to 74,618 last year. So our total expenditures are down by $152,000. And if you compare the total revenue of $73.8 million to the $74.4 million in expenses, that's the $619,000 reduction shortfall that we're suggesting, recommending should come from the operating reserve. Page 74 in this package is a summary of the instructional budget. So these are this is basically the operation of the educational program in the district. Our total expenditures here are 62.1 compared to 62.2 last year, so we're down about $72,000 on the instruction. If you turn over to page 75, you can see the district administration is down $30,000 as per the presentation. The maintenance is down $50,000 as per the presentation, and the $75 is just some rounding stuff that's going on in the employee benefits costing. On page 76, this is a more detailed comparison of the 2013, which is in the center columns of the page, to the 2012-13, which is on the right side. I won't go through this in much detail other than I'll point you to the very bottom left-hand corner. And you see highlighted there the operating surplus appropriation of $619,000. So I'm just trying to show you that these numbers are flowing through all of the documents. If you turn over to page 77, this is a detailed projection of our current year, the 12-13 budget. Down in the bottom right-hand corner, we see a figure of $3,957. That is indicating to us that our projection for the current year is exceptionally on budget, and we're expecting it to come in very balanced. As always, we put a caveat on an $82 million budget, plus or minus $250,000. So hopefully we don't see any shifts in the negative way. And then if you turn to page 80. Page 80 is a copy of your annual budget bylaw that's being presented for you tonight to be adopted. So it would be cited as the Board of Education School District number 71 annual budget bylaw in the amount of $84,845,212. And you can see the three reading requirement. If you go over to page 82, this is just the last slide that I'll point out and then take any questions trustees may have. At the top, you can see the $84,845,212. That's where the figure for your budget bylaw comes from. So you have a recommendation in the Finance Committee minutes for the adoption of the 2013-14 operating budget.
Trustees, any questions or comments?
I do have a comment. I want to thank my fellow trustees, Trustee Coleman and Trustee Gamacorda, and the staff, Secretary Treasurer and Lon Amos, for all their hard work. It's been a very, very long process, but I think we were very thorough, and I think we've satisfied the need to ensure that the school district has a balanced budget, but we also have a reserve for the future. So I want to thank them very much.
Okay.
So I have a question regarding the balanced budget portion and the fact that once again we are going into our reserves to offset the balance. And I look at the fact that that reserve number is going down every year. And my concern and my question is, at what point, looking ahead, do you think that we are going to be in trouble like many other districts in our provinces are? And while I'm glad that we are balancing, I'm not happy because I personally believe once again we're still cutting, and when I look at that projection, every year we take from that reserve, at some point we're not going to have any money in there, and then we're going to be at a major impasse on what do we really cut. So that's my concern and my caution on that one.
Nice. So, Peter?
Sure. You're my boss.
I think this is the year. And the reason for saying that is that we're out of funding protection So I have reasonable confidence that we will replace the 619 back in when we do the final recalculation. And we may even have a little more money to add to the reserve. So I think this is the downturn, or this is the start of the upside. Now, negatively, as we add students, obviously our expenses go up. So we become more dependent on provincial grants to maintain our healthy balance, our healthy reserve fund. There is a downside. The province is going to have to find more money because we will have more students. Maybe not next year, but the year after. But for the immediate prospect, I'm pretty sure we'll put the 619 back.
So if you were, I'm sure all of you have the audited financial statements from last fall on your tabletop, so you can look at them all the time. The closing reserve last June was actually $2.4 million. And this year we are converting over from generally accepted accounting principles to the public sector accounting board standards. And there's going to be a one-time year-end adjustment that Ron and I will have to process, which is going to add about $800,000 or $900,000 to our operating reserve. So up on the slide where I show a 3.3 opening balance, it's actually increasing this year by $900,000, and then this budget is suggesting that we take $619,000 of that. The not being in funding protection can't be overstated on as far as sustainability goes. If you're operating in funding protection and you're not in a sustainable situation, and being out of it this year, I think is a really good indication that the reductions made in the prior couple of years have put us in good stead to be sustainable. We're looking at a potentially larger enrollment reduction next year because we've got a very large grade 12 group. So we'll see if we stay out of funding protection, but I would agree with Trustee Coleman that not being in funding protection and knowing that the recalc that will happen in December will likely balance our budget for us, I think we've achieved that level of sustainability.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll carry on. We need to pass this bylaw, so I'll start it off. At School District 71, Comox Valley Annual Budget Bylaw for 2013-2014 in the amount of $84,845,212 received its first reading.
A seconder? Yes. Thank you, Peter. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried. Reader for the second.
That the School District number 71 Comox Valley Annual Budget Bylaw for 2013-2014 in the amount of $84,845,212 received its second reading.
The seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Janice. All those in favor? And that's carried. And the third reading, it needs to be passed unanimously.
That the Board unanimously agree to suspend the requirements of the School Act, and that the Board's Procedural Bylaw 2007 to have the third reading of the annual budget bylaw at a subsequent meeting.
Seconder?
Second.
Donna, thank you. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. And finally,
That School District number 71 Comox Valley Annual Budget Bylaw for 2013-2014 in the amount of $84,845,212 received its third and final reading.
seconder? Peter, thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried.
Yeehaw.
Thank you very much for all your work.
Thank you.
And there's a final recommendation. Oh, sorry, Jen.
I actually have a question regarding the Finance Committee report. And it has to do with 2.2, the public request for information. We've got a comment, a paragraph on here, which left me a bit confused. And I'm wondering if you could please explain to me that that what the rationale and where that came from, because I looked at that and I had some questions about that. So it's on our agenda here, and I'd like to have some information as to what that meant, please.
It's page 69 in your package.
So, Rick or Secretary Treasurer?
So, Rick, you want me to? Go ahead. So at the last regular meeting, we had a request for whether information that was shared at the Finance Committee was public information. And that information that we do provide to the Finance Committee was provided. And there was a further request on what was called the expenditure warrant, which is a detailed listing of every check to every vendor being provided. Previous years, the statement was put on the internet, and that request was taken to the Finance Committee, and our discussion around the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act came to the conclusion that we should not be releasing that information to the public, that the Statement of Financial Information is our required release of that information. So the Finance Committee concluded not to provide the expenditure warrant as had been requested.
So just a follow-up, so if somebody's interested, how do they get that information?
The release of information is done through the SOFI, Statement of Financial Information request, and that's our legal obligation to release information.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
I actually had the same concerns about that, and I'm wondering what is the degree of information in the Statement of Financial Information report? Does it itemize the totals paid to our suppliers?
What our requirement is, any supplier where our purchases exceed $25,000, we're required to place them on the report. And any employee that earns more than $75,000 and their expenses are on the report. So the requirement to release incidental type expenses, less than $25,000, are not. We are not required to release that. Cumulative, yeah. That's right.
Okay, I definitely. My sense is that we're spending public dollars. People have a right to know where we're spending public dollars, and that if a supplier chooses not to have it doesn't want that information, at least they can choose not to be a supplier. But I think I can live with those thresholds in terms of what's suitable. And obviously, I have to live with them, but I definitely have some concerns that,
Could I just, again, not to split hairs, because the language that you used is not required to release, and it suggests.
Sorry, I should use two sets of words. One, the required to release comes from the SOFI, Statement of Financial Information. So any accumulated expenses above $75,000, that protection of privacy piece is the shall not release, and that is the discussion that we had around the expenditure fund.
Okay.
That's the clarification.
Okay, thank you. So I'll move the receipt of the Finance Committee's report.
Seconder? Peter, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's no Policy Advisory Committee to report, so we'll move on to board business. And we have the 3 items listed there, and then the 2 additional items that we moved from the consent agenda. So, over to you.
So on item number 1 under board business, inquiry update, I actually have nothing further to report. The review lays still in the hands of the Office of the Privacy Commission. I checked this afternoon to see if there was any new update, and there was not. Under district logo, this was just a bit of an ask on the part of senior staff. In our governance conversations and in some of our, I think, there was a public conversation, even though it was tongue-in-cheek, probably a little bit in the spring of last year, around having a conversation about looking at our current district logo and perhaps going through a process that would involve students and our community around looking at a different kind of logo. The clarification for staff is it something that we could at least as senior staff, begin to pursue a little bit to bring forward to the board a variety of different options about how we actually pursue that. some ideas about how we might actually gather feedback from our community about whether or not the current logo works for folks and makes sense, or the fact that, and it's not lost on us as a senior staff, that we currently have an official logo and a kind of underground logo that folks are using in a good way on a fairly regular basis. People have business cards made up that way. Schools are using it when they're faced with the official logo or the unofficial logo. I sometimes see the unofficial logo, and that's the one, of course, which has got the little face and hands and things. So what I'm asking for is just some feedback from the board about whether or not we could begin to, in a very preliminary manner, to look at some ways that we could actually design a process by which we look at the current logo or versus a new one, and then if there's, bring that to you, and then if we get direction from you to move further down that road, we will. We're at a place in the life of a school district, ending one school year, moving into another, when people are asking, can I use the underground logo or not? And I'm having to say no, because it's not the official logo. Or some folks are saying, can we use a hybrid of both? So what I'm asking simply are, when I think about our governance conversations, I think about some conversations we've had over the past year or so about the logo. Could we just maybe get a little bit of a report back to you about maybe exploring the logo issue? So that's why I'm here.
Yes?
I agree with the idea. It's time to move forward, but my ask is this would be something that you'd be doing internally within our district, not going out and seeking someone. It would be an internal process. Then I think, yes.
You've been really clear,
Yeah, I think it's time to move forward, and I think that when you have that we need to have one logo, and I think it's time to move forward. I'm looking forward to your report.
Yeah, I think that we have an opportunity, certainly the 3 senior high schools and the arts programs that we have, that we could create some type of contest, with some type of reward for that logo, for a school district logo. I mean, who better than the kids in the schools representing what this school district looks like?
It does kind of tie in with that strategic planning process that we're working on, and I think Tom is going to discuss further. And on the one hand, when you think about it, it's just it seems like it's not possible to do a logo, but when you're doing that logo within the context of creating a strong strategic vision that will then roll over planning going forward, it usually turns out to be a bigger thing than you think, and that it becomes working on a logo or a name change or any of those sorts of things, which seem just small symbolic pieces, actually turn out to be big movers of the process. So I think we need to be doing it, but I think that it might be very interesting as you start to think about what that process will be, that it'll turn out to be a bigger, longer term thing than it might just, let's get a logo. Yeah.
Certainly, we've not been approaching it like let's get a logo.
Yeah.
We've been thinking about it for quite a long time.
Yeah.
So we would like just to begin to be able to put that together and come back to you with some thoughts and ideas about it.
Do you have
I'm good.
a thought for a time frame?
Well, what we'd like to do is start the thinking, and it's the end of May, and of course we wouldn't be able to do this by the end of this school year, not anticipating, and in fact would probably not want to do that because there's still governance conversations, strategic planning conversations going on, but we could put some of the thinking that we have together and present it to the board for their thinking and feedback, A, about the process, and B, about what's contained inside the design process. And so that could be over time, over the next 3 or 4 months, as we as adults work together, getting ready for next school year when we can involve our stakeholder groups and particularly students. Because you're right, it isn't. We've not attacked it like it's going to be an overnight kind of thing. We need some time.
Okay. You good with what you heard?
Thank you. I'm just going to continue to go like this or not like this when I see the unofficial one. And because it appears to be more prevalent, and I understand why, than the official one.
Thank you. So we'll move on to your item, Sheila, active student travel.
Don't we have PLCs and ICANN project?
No, that's
We're not there yet.
Oh, is it after?
Yeah.
4 and 5.
4 and 5.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, there was a briefing note connected with this item relating to motion January to approve a $1,000 grant for the Active Student Travel Initiative, and subsequently, and at the same time, some funding coming from the Cycling Task Force, which is a regional body, allocating a very significant part of their annual budget to it, and the Courtney Council approving $5,000 in each of 2 years towards it. But the motion which our board approved was subject to a $20,000 contribution by the end of June, for a variety of reasons, which is part and parcel of creating this interagency initiative. One of the first steps in doing it, when you have the coordinator, is that they work on establishing the committee protocols and some terms of reference and agreements. And because we don't have that, there's been a lot of uncertainty about who's applying for things and who's making presentations and where the funding's coming. So we do have a shortfall at the present time, and there are still some strong commitments towards it and presentations coming up. But just to be sure, in consultation with Director Douglas, we thought that perhaps, given part of the year is gone already, that we could rework the application, the budget proposal, to a smaller ask, and amend that requirement in there. So the motion as presented here, the recommendation is to reconsider it, and the process of reconsidering it being to refer it to the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee and have that committee come back. And I think, Alan, you'd agree that the schools are still very anxious to move forward, and we have some of them doing some work on their own, and want to be able to support that to the extent possible. We'd really be looking if, depending on the recommendation from that committee and then the board's decision following some planning work over the summer and doing a major initiative in the 6-month period rather than a year.
So in short, procedurally, we need to, if we were to change the motion that was passed on the 22nd, given that it was in this calendar year, it needs to be reconsidered by a motion. So that's part A, if you will. And then should that motion pass, then there would be the second motion to move the item back to the Ad Hoc Transportation Committee for further discussion, and then a recommendation back to the board at the June meeting. Correct.
Thank you. Well, the motion says you have up until June the 30th, 2013, and we're not there yet. And so part 2 of this is going back to the Transportation Committee. So I really don't think there's any need for a motion at this particular time. If it goes back to the Transportation Committee, and the Transportation Committee wants to bring a recommendation forward in June, at the June board meeting, which is prior to June the 30th, then we can consider it then. I don't see why we have to change it now, because the drop dead date is still June the 30th.
So, without overcomplicating this, because there's a potential to overcomplicate it, the belief is that in effect, the board purposefully put on a rider onto the initial motion that we passed in January, which basically said our contribution is contingent upon the contribution of others.
Correct.
It is, I think, based on how things have played out over the last number of months, it is a reasonable assumption that that $20,000 contribution will not materialize prior to the end of June. Consequently, the consideration before the board is to essentially pull the January 22nd motion to allow what I anticipate a conversation being at the Ad Hoc Transportation Committee about a standalone motion coming back before the board for $10,000 without the $20,000 rider. Now I'm presupposing a whole bunch, but that's the gymnastics of it, as it were. Have I got that pretty well right, the Secretary Treasurer? Okay. The other point is that yes, we could wait till, and again, if the motion to reconsider is defeated, then this motion stays alive until June the 30th. But then, given that it's unlikely that we will meet in July, August, then it would be something that we would then have to revisit in the fall.
I don't know if this is a point of order or not, but I think that it has also to do, and I appreciated so much your help in figuring out how this could be done. It's an attempt to be prudent and be ahead of time, knowing that something may happen. Was that motions to reconsider required notice at a previous board meeting, a meeting before the vote, at which it was reconsidered. So that reconsideration, a new recommendation coming in at the June meeting, needed to have an agreement that we would do the reconsideration at this meeting in order to meet whatever our procedural bylaw says.
Clear as much? Peter?
I don't want to get involved in the technicalities that you're discussing. I want to speak to what I see as the purpose of this grant money. We have an interest as a board in the fitness of our students. We do the best we can with the hours of instruction we have dedicated to that topic. However, we all know that most of the fitness activities that students undertake are outside the school setting, and we can promote fitness by, amongst other ways, active travel to school. So I would want people to remember there is a basic purpose here, which is not just giving money to an organization to promote an obscure activity. It does, in fact, fit within what I believe is the shared interest of the board, student fitness. At a certain point in time in the future, when we have a chance to consider a board policy on student fitness, we'll obviously need to look into community support mechanisms of various kinds to help with our general fitness goal. And this will, I think, fall into context, that context. Doesn't sound like it right now from the discussion, I know that, but I think in future it will be seen in that context.
Thank you. Yes?
I move that the Board of Education reconsider the January 22nd, 2013 resolution providing a $10,000 one-time grant to support the Active Student Travel Initiative.
Second.
Thank you, Donna. Any further discussion? All those in favor? And that's carried.
I so move that the Board of Education refer the active student travel matter to the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee for further consideration and the committee report back to the June regular meeting.
Seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Donna. Discussion on that item? All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you very much. Now, the items moved from the consent agenda. We have on page 8 in your package. A letter from members of the community. And Sheila, was your request to move that out of the consent?
Yeah,
what's your pleasure?
Very comprehensive letter with a lot of detail behind it, and I know that the concerns of these parents have been addressed to a certain extent directly by the superintendent and my staff with those parents. So that's great. But in the course of looking at this letter, there were a couple of questions or points that came to me that I just was looking for more enlightenment about, and so if I could I'll be brief. One was just a suggestion about a communications plan and ongoing, and I know that it seems one of the issues is about the timing of this information being added to the calendar and some technical issues about the online survey and things like that. So I am wondering or hoping that senior management will have some plans around communication, ongoing communication about the PLCs as they move forward, getting it out to families. Today I was at the Royston School Review, and some of the information presented to us about the work that they've been doing, which really represented PLC work in a lot, and how it is going to be measurable in terms of changes for student performance, I thought was so valuable, but that needs to go to the public, and so really hoping that that piece of this will be put in place, and a suggestion that you might invite some of the people who have been paying a great deal of attention to this process to be a bit of a focus group and try the communication plan out on, since it's clearly an issue. The other point that I had some concern was about the plan for Wednesday Challenge program, which, because it's specifically at present on Wednesday, would be quite affected by the loss of that, potentially of a half day. And then also wondering about other schools. Hornby is the case with the 4-day week, where is there going to be sufficient flexibility in certain programming around that Wednesday afternoon? And then the final one was about the provision of student services. Non-enrolling staff, particularly our counselors and our speech therapy, people like that, if currently they are seeing students on that Wednesday time, they have so little time with our students. So I do have a concern that we are reassured that the kids, that we are still going to be making as much provision. And I'm just wondering, we've had some discussions about this is a great opportunity for our non-teaching staff, the other non-enrolling teachers and EAs, and certainly our principals to participate. In some cases, our counselors, it may be really great that they're in there, but in other cases, their priority would be students. Is their participation optional? Can they join? Is it going to be mandatory that they participate in it? Those are some questions that have come up that I know we've discussed this, but I'm still not clear on that.
So how could I help make it clearer than yes? That's where I've had, nothing's changed since the conversations that we've had about it. Challenge, the intention is not for that, it's for the date to change. It has been from the very beginning. There was never an intention for them to lose challenge time. Okay. Never an intention for some of the other programs like Enter and Fay. They will do it a different way. Those teachers, some of them will do it online because it's a DL program. So never was an intention from the very beginning. We've always said that those programs would have flexibility about how they schedule them. From the very beginning, we've said on the islands that they will look at their schedules themselves, the way that they need to do them. Of course, Hornby, of course, has a 4-day week. Denman has a 5-day week. They're a small staff. They've been given permission to come up with something creative that makes sense for their sites. And in terms of your student services questions, non-enrolling teachers we're looking at a hybrid model. There are times when it's very effective for non-enrolling specialist teachers to be working with the staffs at the sites that they are responsible for in their PLCs, sharing their skill sets. Mm-hmm. In that time, in a way, they can maximize their ability to increase capacity for teachers on those sites, in those PLCs. And there'll be times when they, as specialist teachers, will work as a PLC, in lifting their practice, which is what this whole PLC piece is about. So we've had those conversations ongoing with those staffs. Esther has moved those conversations forward with student services. And when on the occasions where we have specialist itinerant folk working specifically with students in those time frames, and remember that they're not every Wednesday, they're in some months 2 Wednesdays a month, in some months just 1, that will work around the scheduling of those students to ensure that they will never be at a loss So if it is on the Wednesday or it could be on the Thursday, we'll make sure that those students won't miss their testing times, won't miss their dates, that we'll make sure that they get tested. All of that's manageable. All of that we've talked about, and none of that has changed for us.
That's pretty important, though, because, you know, with particularly in that area, scarce resources, you know, there's going to be, I would think there'd be a cost in order to cover both and still have, at least to maintain the same degree of special service.
We don't believe that to be true. We think we have enough flexibility in the scheduling. We've looked at it quite a bit. We don't have to hire, I think you're inferring that we have to hire more people for more hours of things. No, we just have to look at scheduling differently. We've talked about it for quite a long time.
Are there any other trustees who have questions? I'll come back to you. Sheila, any other trustees questions about this particular correspondence? Sheila, do you have any comment?
Can I just say that
we're going to need to monitor.
Yeah, and with Trustee, McDonald, we talked about, did you ask, does senior management have plans around communication? Yes. We have a variety of different things. Just finished up a bit of a brochure that'll go out to all students. We had some of on the west side, they offered an open house for parents around PLCs. There's been heightened conversations at PACS, and we have information that I've been working on to present to DPAC to sort of get their take on, you called it for a focus group, you know, will this work? I was intending to use the DPAC as part of our focus group. They represent a variety of different schools from across the district. So as we finish the draft of all of those things, we'll have some folks give us some feedback on them, because that is a great idea that we will do everything we can to reach every household.
So the steering committee that's been working on it, are they going to they were kind of, we went to the education committee in Cumberland.
That group of folks, yeah.
Mostly steering committee. Will they be continuing to have that leadership role? Because I just thought videotape, they spoke so
absolutely, right? And in fact, they're helping. Yeah. We will be hosting for our district and other districts in the summer in August a PLC Institute, and there have been folks from that steering committee that are going to be instrumental in the design of that, and also that whole group that you're talking about will be facilitators at that PLC Institute for all other teachers.
Rick?
Yeah, I think that it's board responsibility to respond back to the letter, thank them for their observations.
We don't want to do that.
I'll support Chair.
And that's normally done. I can also say that having had an opportunity to meet with the authors of the letter, along with the superintendent and a number of other staff, I think it would be fair for me to represent that they were very much appreciative of the time. I think it would be also fair to say that philosophically there may still be differing views, but certainly there was a good and robust conversation, and their input was appreciated, in particular on the challenges of communication. And we took that to heart and their advisement, and we'll be going forward.
And I met consequently one more time with one of them twice now, so I'm open to answering any questions that they might have.
Thank you. Okay, move on to the next item, which is captured on page 11 in the package, the ICANN project. Janice.
So the reason I wanted to bring forward this ICANN project is talking about what Quinish is doing. And I wanted to highlight the amazing ICANN projects and the enthusiasm the students have at Quinish. And I had the honor and the pleasure of attending the ICANN showcase last week at Quinish. And I just want to touch base with some of my other fellow trustees of some of the amazing and heart-wrenching and wonderful projects some of our students are doing. These are student self-driven projects. And when you read the letter here, you talk about these young boys decided to invite Jesse Rubin back to the district on their own to raise money for a playground. This was their initiative. And some of the other initiatives I want to touch base with, and I'm sure our superintendent, assistant superintendent also attended, can highlight on that. We had a group of young ladies from Hugh Ben Park Elementary School create their own book. And this is an amazing book that my granddaughter, my further granddaughter, absolutely loved, with all the money going to the Mars Project. This was their own creation. I will say that I was amazed at the grade 7 boys, grade 7 from Hugh Ben Park, I'd be wrong at their age, created their own hovercraft. Where they took a old waterbed and they got a motor from a chainsaw, I think it was, and they inflated it, and they had these metal things at the front. And their ICANN project was, because Bayne Sounds is really polluted, that they did this old hovercraft, so they would collect all the garbage from Bayne Sound. Absolutely amazing. And then the grade 6 young lad from Queenish, not an engaging student at all, and his passion was magic. And he's sitting there doing a magic trick for me, just totally entrenched in that. So this is what our teachers, with those projects doing. I want to share that with our board. We also had a student that Al Pullen got from Vanier, and this student talked about her history where she was expelled in grade 11 last year and decided to come back to school, and now she's graduating, and she spoke to all the elementary students about her, I can, and you can move forward. And from these students raising money for send girls to schools, excuse me, I had some dental stuff today, my mouth is frozen. To raise money to send girls to school in Sudan to water holes was absolutely amazing. And these are programs that our own district students are doing, and these are their creations. So I get a chance, if you get a chance to see it next year, I would invite you to come out and doing that. And I would also commend to the 3 elementary schools. There was Huban, Putledge, and Queenish, for the amazing work those teachers do in supporting those students. So it's just amazing. I just want to share that with my fellow trustees. And I think Aspen was another school. Sorry, there was an Aspen school I missed on that one. And maybe
just if you're interested at all and you didn't have a chance to get to the showcase, at the showcase was a cumulative kind of it was a video interviewing students from across the district who had participated. It was done by Doug David, amazing man. And the connection, if you recall, Doug was the fellow who presented at Education Committee with Catherine Manson, and the connection we have now to India, to Design for Change, the global group called Design for Change. And Doug's been invited actually to go to India and be the Canadian representative, because we'll be the first community in Canada to adopt their curriculum in our schools. This is all very much like the ICANN. So there's a video, we just put it on the website yesterday, on our school district website. If you want to have a quick look, it's about 5 minutes, and it's interviewing the students about their learning through the ICANN project. I highly recommend it. It's pretty articulate. Kids are pretty honest about their learning. No editing, you can tell, in the video. It was not edited by adults, but that in a good way, I mean, because they're really honest about what works for them and what doesn't. So I encourage you to have a look at it.
Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. Okay, we're at question period. Public question period. So I'll ask any questions from the media first. And from the non-media?
So, if I understood correctly tonight, it was the finance committee that consisted of 3 trustees who worked on budget, and a big job raised, I know. And so, as there was virtually no discussion about the budget cuts and that would mean it was up for consideration, all those kinds of questions this evening in public, I'm wondering if this board as a whole has met to discuss what potential cuts would be. Was the public invited to that meeting? And if so, are there any plans for that meeting?
We had a number of the open house meetings. We had a number of in-camera meetings. That's not true. We had a in-camera meeting. It was relevant to items that would be specifically identifying things and individuals that we would not normally talk about in the public.
And stakeholder meetings.
And the stakeholder meetings that were referenced in Russell's report.
So the stakeholder meetings I get and the open house meetings, I thought that those were for public input, so the public could give their input, stakeholders could give the input. The discussion amongst 7 trustees occurred there about what they would consider to cut and what was off the table. That's the kind of discussion I'm looking for. Paul said we ever talked about that and at a public meeting.
That discussion did not take place at those meetings. Are there any other questions? Susan?
Just to double check, you're still in charge of the agenda and signing off on minutes and so forth for the board?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So I have a couple of questions for you. At the April 24th, 2012 board meeting, so by a year ago, there's an item on the agenda that dealt with the board policy with respect to this assignment hiring of principals and vice principals. And the board voted to refer that to the governance committee. So I'm wondering if you can tell me what's become of that item. It was supposed to come back to the board in September 2012 at a public board meeting. If you can tell me what's become of that, then I have another question.
It's still at governance.
Still at governance? Okay, so I have some
I think that, and folks around the table can certainly correct me, that what you see on the walls here really reflects the conversations that we've had. I think governance is often sort of a misnomer, and so, but our work in terms of establishing and developing our strategic plan and direction is captured in the material. That's here. Those are the conversations that we've been having and those governance meetings.
So you have a couple of substantive issues, such as the policy that I just referred to, and then at your last board meeting, you had another item that you sent to the governance session. You said it wasn't an in-camera item, so these are items of board business which seem to be being conducted behind closed doors and with no minutes prepared. So do you have any minutes at all for any of your governance meetings?
We have what we have on the wall that represents our governance meetings.
So you have no minutes for these meetings?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I've heard that a couple of school districts in the province were looking at maybe not on those carbon offset or whatever, the carbon trust. They're looking at putting that money into their own district initiative principles. So this is what I'm interested in.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a requirements, regulations that we have to follow, and it's not really optional. So we make our contribution through our energy, and that's about $5 million across the province. And then that money is coming back to school districts in the form of capital funding to support energy efficiency. And we received $45,000 from Isfeld for a boiler upgrade through that program. So districts don't really have an option to be doing this. So.
What you've heard about are two districts who have chosen to challenge that just this week. And so, like the pioneers that they are, or not, districts are waiting to see. I don't know. We haven't. I mean, it just occurred yesterday. I saw the letter yesterday, last night actually. So there are two districts that are looking to challenge that. They believe they found a creative way around the legislation, and so like most folks are waiting to see what happens with that. We suspect what we've seeing the conversation at the provincial level amongst superintendents and folks are that we'll see whether or not there's a letter back to those boards to say your creative accounting shifting from one pot to another doesn't meet the requirements of the legislation and you can't do it, or nothing, right? But it will only, those letters just came out yesterday and they are caused a stir, and so folks are waiting to see what happens. Yeah. Two districts in the interior.
Can I just add to that? I think there's a really interesting thing where the school boards were very successful in opting out of the carbon trust, which for quite a while was pooling money, and that money was available to companies like Enbridge. And so the school district, we were one of, I think all 93 or however many districts there were, wrote letters objecting, and the BCSDA showed a lot of leadership in getting us out of that pool, so that the funds, the place we do pay our carbon offset dollars to now is bringing it back into school districts. And I know that there are discussions at lots of school districts, and Ian's probably aware of them, and municipalities looking at creating local green opportunities and school boards do have some opportunities to create carbon offsets that could be sold, so you could do a little closed loop, and I'm sure that's going to develop more. But we're already in a way better situation where at least the money we pay goes into a fund that will come back to us rather than to big business.
Great. Just a really quick one, if I could. Going back to the Finance Committee meetings 2.2, the public request for information, and the discussion that occurred with senior management and trustees about the Freedom of Information Protection Privacy Act. Was there a lawyer consulted during that discussion?
I'm sorry?
Was there a lawyer consulted during the discussion of the Freedom of Information?
No, there was.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
You seconded? All those in favor? Sure. Thank you.